Today's SystemLink Toolkit Webex. My name is Elsa Rodriguez-Messer, and I will be today's moderator. During the Webex, all lines will be on mute. Please use the question box in the GoToWebinar menu for all questions during the presentation. All questions will be answered at the end, and this Webex will be recorded, and a recording will be sent out following the Webex. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Randy Kenny, our Guide Product Manager, who will kick us off. Randy?
All right, thank you, Elsa, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm going to go through just a few slides to kind of set the stage of why we developed this product and what it is and some of the benefits, but we're going to spend the vast majority of today's webinar in a demo showing you the product specifically, as the invite said, around the spreadsheet processing and how you can use Excel spreadsheets in a variety of different ways, everything from pretty basic ones to very complex ones, and use it essentially as a front end or a way to update your XA data. So with this being a webinar format, I always like to just point out that with everyone's lines muted, this is not as interactive as we typically have when we have a demo with a customer. But if there's things here that are of interest to you, please use the chat box for any questions during the demo, and we would be glad to follow up afterwards with a personalized demo for you, and then maybe a larger team at your company, again, if this looks to be of interest and you want to understand some more about it. So from an introduction standpoint, as Elsa said, I'm a Guide Manager, product manager here at Guide. We've got about 15 different products in the portfolio, one of them being the toolkit you're going to see today. I'm also a consulting manager and have worked with a lot of you on a variety of different projects over the years. We also have Dan Miller on the call, who's senior technical consultant with Guide and is the principal architect of this product that we're going to show you. We should be able to answer any questions you want to throw at us today or in the future. So I'm going to go through just a few slides, like I said, on some of the benefits of SystemLink in general, what you get from Infor within the integrator suite, and then some of the toolkit benefits and what it brings to the table. But we're going to spend most of the time in a demo. But I do want to make sure we save about at least 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A and make sure we get through any questions that you want to ask during the demo. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So just from an update or from an overview standpoint, I guess many of you may already know this, but SystemLink itself, as you get it from Infor, it's part of the integrator suite, as we talked about. So with PowerLink, with NetLink, and with then you get SystemLink as well. So PowerLink is your client server user interface that a lot of you probably utilize. NetLink is the browser-based interface to maintaining objects and data in XA. And SystemLink is a programmatic way of doing that, of doing the same thing. So essentially, the best way to think about what you can do with SystemLink and the benefits is anything you can do in PowerLink. So if you can go in and maintain a screen, if you can add new records, update records, delete records, you can do the same thing through SystemLink through another interface, an external interface, such as Spreadsheets, such as a web browser, or other input files that you may be on the iSeries or whatever format it is. And so that all of the same edits, the same business logic, just as if you were hand keying the data in PowerLink or NetLink, is enforced when you make a call through SystemLink to do the same types of edits. And this includes any custom edits or objects or user exits, for that matter, that you've done in Integrator that you've created. SystemLink will also honor those, and all of that will be visible to SystemLink, just like in PowerLink, if you've created it in Integrator. All of the security rules are enforced. So if you're not authorized to go add a record or delete a record, you're not going to be able to do it through SystemLink either. and you have maintenance history, so you can see, just like if you were doing updates in PowerLink, who did what. So that's in general what SystemLink allows you to do. The problem with it is that it's been around for probably 18, 20 years or so from Infor, but there hasn't been a lot of examples. There haven't been a lot of documentation of how to use it. And you do need some kind of a management console to manage the request going to SystemLink and the response coming back. And that's really why we developed the toolkit. We initially developed it for our own internal use with SystemLink projects that we were taking on with customers for our technical team. And then our customers saw what it could do and wanted to purchase it and use it for their own projects. So we made it a product that you can purchase today. And we maintain it and continue to do upgrades and add features and functions to it, have been over the years. So a lot's gone into this. It's a very mature product, but beyond that, if you don't have the toolkit, in order to use SystemLink effectively, you have to create something yourself to do the same types of things. So the toolkit was originally developed to help RPG developers who didn't have XML knowledge. So by using the toolkit, you can understand RPG, but you don't need to know any XML at all to be able to use it and to be able to manage SystemLink. We can also do things like grouping logical objects and send it as one request. So a good example is any type of order header and the related lines. Could be a customer order, purchase order, manufacturing order. And if any part of that fails, it'll back the whole transaction set out. So you won't get half of an order in the system. We have customers that needed to do very large numbers of transactions, in the hundreds of thousands, millions even of transactions. And so we've developed a technique that allows you to break those transactions down into data queues, and you define how many data queues you want and how you want to channel the actual SystemLink requests through them. And so you can process very, very large numbers of transactions in a much shorter period of time. Then one of the really nice features is the error management capability that's in the toolkit. So, you can have end users, especially when you're dealing with spreadsheets and so forth, where once you've mapped the columns in a spreadsheet to the related data in XA, they can go in and update the spreadsheet. They can attach it to the job. We also have a way you can directly drop that spreadsheet into a monitored folder and it'll pick it up and process it. And then you can see all of the errors through a PowerLink view through the toolkit. And these can be set up so that groups of people can only see their transactions. So customer service sees what they've processed through. Engineering can see what they've done. So there's a lot of capability in the error management and providing that visibility within the toolkit. And then sure everyone knows that offline loads, XA, Infor has said for quite a while now that they're really no longer supported at all today. And they keep promising that in some future release, they're going to be completely gone. And if you're at release 9 or later, you've already seen that with the base price upload, and that offline load has been taken away. So we've got a module within the toolkit that allows you to seamlessly replace those offline loads. And instead of going through the green screen processing, we do it all through SystemLink, which is obviously supported by Infor and is their go forward method for doing offline loads. So just a few other things here. Again, you don't need to know XML, but you can code some data attributes within RPG shell programs that we provide. You only provide the attributes and the values, the data itself. So with Excel spreadsheets like you're going to see today, there's no programming whatsoever involved. It's purely a mapping exercise. And we'll go through exactly how that works and what you do to make that happen. But you can actually set up a spreadsheet and do the mapping exercise and then process it without writing one line of code. And then there's other things that make using SystemLink very efficient, that if you do them right, it can be efficient. If you don't do it right, it can be very inefficient. But things like session handles, work handles, what to keep open and how to process those things, we handle all of that within the toolkit and optimize how all that works. So that's just some background. We're going to get into the product demo. And what I want you to keep in mind is that as we're going through this today, anything that you can see that we click on, that we go into, that is part of the toolkit, okay? SystemLink by itself, you may or may not know, is really just a series of what I call black hole programs, and you have to know how to control it with your magic wand. And so that's what the toolkit does. It's your magic wand. It allows you to create the request that gets sent to SystemLink. It gets the response back from SystemLink, parses out any errors, or lets you know that it processed successfully. All of that and all of the objects and things that you see today are actually what you get when you purchase our toolkit. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Dan, and we'll get right into the demo portion here.
Okay.
Yeah, you should have it, Dan.
Show my screen. There we go. So yes, my name's Dan Miller, and Guide has developed a toolkit over the years. It's gone through a couple iterations. It started out as a product that did batch type processing. So you could write a little lightweight program that would generate XML, another program to load up transactions to send through. And that was very popular, but I kept getting requests, can't we do something with spreadsheets? Can't we do something with spreadsheets? So a couple years ago, we added that functionality. And that's what I'm going to demo today, because that seems to be what everyone's interested in, not so much the batch type stuff, but we can do both. So if we look at, let's take a little example of what we might do with our spreadsheet. And we find that people use the spreadsheet functionality in a couple different ways, basically three. You might put together a pre-formatted spreadsheet and give it to a user or a customer and have them fill it in, and then it can be processed through the toolkit. If you're like most IT departments, you get a lot of one-time requests. Can you do this? Can you update these territories? Can you update these sales reps? Can you update the costs on these items? Yeah. So you get one-time shots, and it's real easy to set up that type of thing and process it through. And the third thing that the toolkit's very useful for is doing conversions. So a lot of companies acquire other companies, and then that company has data that they need to get into Mapex. And typically what you would do is export that data to a spreadsheet and map it into an XA object and process it through. Yeah, we've done SAP to XA conversions and other applications also. So that's what you might use it for. But we're going to today do a real simple example. We have some items here in the item revision object, and we want to update this type and tagged column, which are user fields that I've renamed in the item revision object. Okay, so what we're going to use to update that is a little spreadsheet. So in the spreadsheet, we have, first of all, the site, item, and revision, and those are the key fields for the item revision object. And we always need to start out with the key fields, so obviously SystemLink knows what it is it's updating. And then here in the type and the tagged column, we have values that we're going to update into the item revision record. Okay, so what we have to do then at this point is map the spreadsheet that we have to the SystemLink object in XA. So XA gives us a real nice little feature here. We can bring up an item. There we go. And we can change a couple values here. And we can go to navigation and system link request, or click those off because we don't need that stuff. Yeah, this is all we need. And we can see what it is that SystemLink is going to be expecting from us. So there's basically two things we need to pass to SystemLink. And the first thing is the domain class, and that just tells SystemLink what object we're going to be updating. In this case, it's a COM Apex EPDM item revision. Yeah, it's a little wordy, and it uses a camel case, they call it, naming convention. I always use a lot of copy and paste because I'm not a real good typist, and it's real easy to get this stuff wrong. So we have the item revision. Now remember, we had the three key fields: site, item, and revision, and we can see what they're called in SystemLink. So it's not the field name like you have, like it's not STID or whatever it is in the file, actual file. It's site, item, and revision. And then our user fields, user field switch B and user field code B. Okay. So what we would typically do is copy that to a clipboard, and that will give us something to work from. Paste it into a Word doc or a notepad, or if you're fancy, maybe you have Notepad++, and we copy it in there so we can copy out the stuff we need. Now then, we want to set this up. Oh, there's an update? Really? Okay. We want to set this up in the toolkit so the toolkit knows what to do with this spreadsheet. So I'm going to go to objects here, and this is the dashboard for the toolkit. It has all the things you might want to do in the toolkit. The objects is where we define the data that we're going to be passing to SystemLink and where we're retrieving it from. So we already have the demo items set up, but I'll review what we put in there. So here is the domain class, com.mapexepdm.item revision. I pasted that in. And then over here, we add columns, and the columns A, B, C, D, E correspond to the columns from the spreadsheet, A, B, C, D, E. So we specify each column and the attribute name for that column and whether or not it's a key field. So when we create an attribute, we key in the column, the attribute, and the key, whether or not it's a key attribute. Now, we don't have to define every column that's on a spreadsheet. Sometimes a user might give you a spreadsheet and they have all these columns they used to come up with a value that's in the last column on the spreadsheet. Well, we can skip over the columns we don't need and just specify the columns that we do need. But once we get it populated, then we have our definition. Now, there is a lot of flexibility we have when we define our attribute. Let's see here. All of our fields are alphanumeric, but we can handle date, text, comments, reason code, some other esoteric things. And those are the main things. We get into complex objects. We also have the ability to do conversions. In this case here, we are using the Boolean conversion, and these are conversions you can set up yourself. And these just won't open Well, one of them, yeah. In this case, we're converting the no from the spreadsheet to a 0 and the yes to a 1. And that's because SystemLink likes to get for Boolean values a 1 or a 0, but that's not real user friendly. So we say we let the user key in yes, but we'll translate it to what SystemLink wants. So we got a lot of features like that in here. So once we get the object defined, then we set up what's called a load setting. And the load setting is where we tell SystemLink which object to use for a spreadsheet. So we have a load setting set up here called Demo XL Item. And why are these always so big? And in here, we specify what queue we're going to send this to. So we we let SystemLink do its thing in batch because it's like PowerLink. It's a little speed challenged, yeah. So, but it's pretty quick, but it's not like you're doing stuff in green screen. So we specify the queue we're going to send this to. We specify grouping, and that's how we're going to process the items on the spreadsheet. And Randy kind of alluded to this in his presentation, but for a spreadsheet like this where we're doing item revision updates, we may want to update everything that's valid and but mark as in error any of the rows that are in error. So that's atomic processing. We also have grouping or transaction processing, I shall say. Those are two common ones we use, atomic and transaction. Transaction says if there's any errors, don't process any of the group. So that's appropriate for things like customer orders, where you don't want an order to go into the system with 4 of the 5 line items populated, but one not in the order because it's an error. Okay, so once we set the other thing that's on here is the owner, and that's how we can segregate out the things that are going through the toolkit. So everything that we process through the toolkit, whether it's a spreadsheet or a batch process, goes through what we call groups, and we can assign owners to the stuff that's going through the toolkit, and that way we can segregate out for different departments or different users what they see. We don't necessarily want the engineering department to see all the groups that accounting's doing. Yeah. So we set that up. Then we go in, we create the worksheet. The worksheet has a name, and that name matches the name at the bottom of the spreadsheet, item revision. And then we specify a start row. We start on row 3, and then down here we add the actual object that's going to process through that spreadsheet. So in this case, that's the Demo XL item that we set up in the previous step. So the object defines the rows, the load setting ties that row definition into what we call load setting that we can use to load the spreadsheet. Now, so I'm going to cancel this. Now, when we create a load setting, the SystemLink Toolkit automatically creates a folder in the IFS. And we can use that folder then to drop a spreadsheet in, and the toolkit will pick up the folder and process it through. So there's two ways we can process spreadsheets. One way is we can come into groups here and create a new group and pick the load setting, demo Excel item, and create the group, and then go find spreadsheet, attach it, and then submit it. So that works, but some customers felt that was a little too cumbersome for users, so we set up this Dropbox processing. So I created a shortcut to this Dropbox. I just used standard Windows functionality to map to the folder in the IFS. And then what I can do is take our spreadsheet, I'm going to close it down, and where's my spreadsheet? Break, demo. Oh, up here.
Top
It's
right.
hiding on me. It was down below yesterday. So I'm going to drag that into the folder, and I'm going to come back over, and we're going to look at our groups, and we'll see that wasn't quick enough. It goes through and tags the different processes it goes through. It grabs the spreadsheet, it prepares the spreadsheet, which the prepare step reads the spreadsheet and generates XML for each row. And then processing is where the spreadsheet actually gets sent to SystemLink for processing. And the toolkit then sends each row to SystemLink, and then SystemLink goes through and processes each row. And if there is an error, that record is marked. So we had, these are the rows. This sequence number here corresponds to the row number from the spreadsheet. So 3 and 13. And if we go back to the group, we see that row 13 had an error. We can click on the eyeglasses, and right here we see what the error is. The update or delete operation was unsuccessful because the specified record was not found. So that just means that we have either an invalid item number or that item number wasn't created yet in XA. And we can fix that error, and we can take the spreadsheet, fix the error, and drop the spreadsheet back into that same folder that we did before. And the toolkit is smart enough to skip rows 3 through 12 and just process row 13. Now, if you'd like to see XML, we can, just like in PowerLink, you could look at the XML for a transaction. We can look at the XML for our transaction here through the toolkit. Object does not exist. Your users probably won't be interested in that, but if you're at all technical, you might want to see that. We keep extensive logs as to when the transactions went through, how many times they went through, how long it took to run them. So, oh, what did I do? And yeah, once we think we fixed the error, we can use this submit button here, and it'll submit the spreadsheet and process it again. Preparing processing errors, and we go through, and we see the error, and we see in the log that it went through again. Yeah. So if a user comes to you and says, tries to tell you, describe what happened, you can, and he says, oh, I didn't do this, you can always look and see. Now, you see, I keep getting these emails. So I've got this, we have the other capability is when we assign an owner to a spreadsheet, we have a feature called, that's standard in PowerLink that we have set up for the toolkit. It's called subscription and notification. We can have an email send out to the owner of that group, and with a message that, oh, this has completed with a status of error. Whoops. There, that's a little easier to read. And look, we got a link here. I wonder what that link does here. Okay. So the link takes us into NetLink, which is another XA product, which is a web-based version of PowerLink. And from here, the user can see the group. He can look at the error and see what's wrong. Record not found. And just, he has all the same functionality that he has from PowerLink. Okay. Do I hear you, Randy?
Yeah, can you show that it actually updated XA?
Oh yeah, I always forget that part.
I know, that's the best part.
Yeah, I got to prove that it actually worked.
It really did when it went to that error state because of the one error. It actually had already processed in that quick of a time frame. I mean, this is a small number of data against a demo database, of course, but yeah, you can see that it updated the XA data right from the spreadsheet.
Yep. So just that easy and quick. And because it's going through SystemLink calls the same programs and executes the same functions that PowerLink does. So in status, we can see the SystemLink transactions that went through. And if we have history turned on, we can look at history, maintenance history. Oh, well, I don't want to do it. Yeah. Display. See how many times I go through. Yeah. So we can see that it was changed 26, what the change was. And it goes through all the standard edits that PowerLink does, and it does the same security validation. So if you're not authorized to update the item revision, you'll get a security message, which one of my customers ran into today. Let's see. Oh, when we set up the load settings, that was one other thing that I kind of skipped over. We can specify here to use submitter's credentials. So there's two ways you can run these groups through. When the original toolkit came out, we just set up a service profile and we called it SystemLink, and everything that ran through ran as SystemLink. So if you went into like the item revision file and looked at the changed user on these transactions, it would say SystemLink. And Infor gave us the ability to override that, and the toolkit takes advantage of that. We can click this use submitter's credentials, and the group will run as the user that actually dragged that spreadsheet into the folder. Now we have, that's a simple flat spreadsheet. We also can do, oh, this isn't the one I want, but this will work, yeah. Yeah. We can also do a more complex object. This is a customer order, and we call them complex objects because they have more than one object type. On a customer order, we have an order header and we have order lines. So for the spreadsheet, when we're doing a complex object, there's what we can do is use column A to identify the object, demo XL head, demo XL line, and then the second, the A here means we're going to add these records, and this would create a customer order based on creating a customer order header and customer order lines. I can drag that one into this folder. Yeah. Well, groups. And it's creating a customer order right now. Okay. Now I wanted this one. Yeah. So that's one way we can do a complex object. We can also, I think, one of the attendees to this session is doing this type of processing where we put multiple customer orders onto one spreadsheet and send that through. And when you do multiple orders, we can set it up so each order is processed as transaction processing. So if the first order, if the order with PO number bicycle processes fine, we create that order. But if Bowie has an error, where we won't create an order at all there, and then if the third line is okay, we process that line. We can fix Bowie and send the spreadsheet back through again, and it'll process. We can add comments over here. Comments are just that easy. We don't have to, if you've ever tried to work with comments in COM, you know, they come in 25 bytes and they're just real fun to play with. But here we can just specify the comment, it loads it right in. These are header comments. Yeah. And if we go back to the spreadsheet, oh, I created our order. If we go back to the objects, we'll see that, if I can get to the right screen, objects, demo. We see that we have a demo CO header, which is demo XL head and demo XL line, and that corresponds to the column on the spreadsheet, to the column A on the spreadsheet. Now we also just recently added a feature where we can create more than one object from one row on the spreadsheet. So here's an order where the customer and PO are repeated on each line. So we need to create, we have 3 rows here, but we need to create 4 objects. We need a header and the 3 lines. And what we can do is when we set up the definition, we can say, we can assign header and detail to the spreadsheet. And we say when there's a break on the PO, then we're going to start a new order. And we can even process where the customer PO are on the first line, but not the successive lines. So we have a lot of flexibility as to how we process complex objects. Okay, let's go back to the I forget what I call this. It's a card, but control center, yeah. So we have groups. We can set up multiple queues. We have in this test environment 5 different queues in a Dropbox monitor. If the load gets heavy, we can set up more queues to process the load, or we can add more monitors to one queue so that one queue could process 2, 3, 4 groups at a time. So we have a lot of flexibility there. I was going to say something, but it left my mind. We have load settings. We can set up owners and players, contacts, and the contacts we can set up with email addresses so that they get emails when there's an error. Objects. We keep track of everything that goes through. These are all a log of all the queues and when the queues were started and stopped and what was submitted to them. When you have a new processor, I read someplace that the hardest thing to do in software development is come up with names. I don't know if I like this name. I'm also toying with headless transactions, but these are transactions that don't have groups, and I'm kind of envisioning this for inventory transactions. This Infor is introducing, they pretty much have all the inventory transactions mapped to PowerLink, and that means we can do inventory transactions through SystemLink and avoid TR data. So that's coming. We have charts that we can show to show volume by day, by hour. And then the other thing that's nice is we have this definitions object here, and this contains all the things that we can define in the toolkit, like objects, load settings, conversions, contacts, owners, and because you want to develop this stuff and test and promote to production, you can define that stuff in test and then pick the definitions that you want to promote to production, export those, and then import them into production. Let's see here. And then we talked about segregating out the groups. This is a workspace. If you haven't worked with workspaces, it's a PowerLink object. It's not even an integrator thing. It's worth looking into. But here we've said, show me just the engineering owners groups and only show me the ones that have errors. Because do we really care about the ones that went through okay? We're concerned with the ones that have errors. So that segregates out that, although we can switch if you want to see all the records that didn't have errors. That's not a very good batting average, is it there? Yeah. But that shows you all the groups, but still only the engineer groups. We can do things like restrict how many buttons they see. Some of the buttons are appropriate for you, but not for the user. So we have a lot of flexibility as to how we deploy this. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk too much about green screen, but I wanted to show you a simple, what we can do as far as batch type processing. For batch type processing, where you're not using a spreadsheet where some file comes to you and you want to have it automatically go through the toolkit, we set up the toolkit comes with a service program and a set of procedures that make it real easy to do the XML generation. So in this program, we're building a request and we're basically passing, setting it up just like we did for the spreadsheet. We have the site item revision as key fields and then our user fields. And these are where the data comes from. So it's real lightweight programming, but the toolkit ties all that together for you and does the processing. Trying to think if there's anything else at this point. Don't want to overload you, but yeah, this is a very mature object. It's, I think Randy says we have like 50 customers out there using this. So it's, you know, they just find it makes SystemLink so easy. Now, I know some of you, a few of you on this webinar already have the toolkit, and you may have seen features in here that you don't have. We're constantly upgrading the toolkit. Anytime you want to upgrade, just let me know. We'll send it out. The upgrade process is really simple and easy. Or even you just want to send a note to Elsa, who's manning the webinar site. Yeah, we'll get you out an upgrade. And the toolkit comes with a manual that tells you how to use the toolkit, how to install the toolkit, how to upgrade the toolkit. So what you'd expect out of a full-featured package. Kind of made it our goal to have 15 minutes left for this presentation. So I'm going to see if we have any questions out there.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan. We do have a couple that have come throughout your presentation. I'm going to start out here dovetailing on the version. We have a question that came through. How do we know if we have the latest version of the toolkit?
Well, you don't unless you were, let's see, who's the last person? Oh, Allied Machine, I think. Yeah. Let's see. How do we? I have started tagging we're constantly adding features. So if you've installed, say, over 6 months ago, there's new stuff in there you could use. I have started tagging the SLTK SRV service program with an ID, and that's just the date that it was sent out. But we don't have like version 1, version 2, version 3. We just have the latest version. So there's always new stuff or bug fixes. Yeah.
I have the contact info on here as well. Actually, I don't have yours, Elsa, but any of the social media sites there, end up with Elsa at some point, plus myself or Dan. Yeah, but like Dan said, if you haven't installed in the last, or haven't upgraded, I should say, in the last 6 months, if you're an existing customer, then you probably just want to contact us and we'll get you the update package. And that just comes via an email, FTP link for download, and then a straightforward upgrade.
Okay. We have a second question. Do the users count against PowerLink users as opposed to SystemLink users?
Okay. This is my understanding is that you get the same number of SystemLink licenses as you get PowerLink licenses. Now, so if you have 30 users, this is if you're registered users. If you have 30 users, you get 30, or concurrent. If you got 30 users, you got 30 SystemLink licenses, which means you can run 30 SystemLink sessions at a time, which is much more than anyone would ever need.
Right. Yep.
Okay. This question is regards to about how many customers have allowed their business users to access the tool versus how many really use the tool for an interface for automated loading of data.
Yeah, that's a great question. We get that a lot in demos, as you're probably not surprised, but yeah, and Dan, jump in here too, but we find unless you've got power users, I'll say, for lack of a better term, that really understand the database, anything related to like setting up those mappings like Dan saw, you typically have that within the IT function of the business. Some customers who have really strong users, will actually allow them to go in and create some of those mappings. But I would say the vast majority of people today anyway are using it for what you saw today, which is spreadsheet processing. At least that's part of what they're using it for. And, a lot of that is managed by the users on their own. Once the mapping is set up and that definition's there, as long as the format of the spreadsheet doesn't change, then they can drop it into that folder, monitor the group, see what the errors are, and go fix it if there's errors and resubmit it.
Right. And I'll just say the toolkit has a lot of security functionality. So if you want to secure certain things but make certain things available, that's supported. Typically, all the users need is a group object so they can see what went through, what had an error, and they can fix that and send it back through. So that's the only part that they need. But you don't need to be a programmer to set up the mapping. You just need to have a little understanding of PowerLink and XA, basically. And I also suggest, Elsa, it might be nice at some point to do a survey just to see how our customers are using the toolkit.
Okay. We have a question that came through regarding the offline processes going away. It says, are they removing the offline file programs, commands, or everything?
What they're doing is removing the ability for you to go to the green screen option and say process it. The files themselves are still there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but this is what I understand. The files are still there, but you won't have, if it's like what they did with base price uploads, you can't go to the green screen function to process it. So, you know, you can still load data into the file, but what are you going to do with it? And that's where, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So you're saying the option's not available in IDF level 1? Are going to be available, or do we even?
Right, that's what I understand. Right.
Okay, yeah, because what I had always heard was that support would be removed, but the functionality maybe wouldn't be removed as long as it would still work. You know, it's going to be, there's a lot of people using like offline mode for customer orders.
Right.
I can't see them yanking that right off the bat.
Yeah, not off the bat.
I'm sure it'll evolve, yeah.
Right. And so that's actually, I mentioned earlier, we really didn't touch on it too much because of the time, but we do have an add-on module within the toolkit that's optional. You don't have to purchase it. And it's not, the add-on module is not needed to do the spreadsheet processing you saw today. But it basically takes those offline load files. So you populate the files the same way you're doing today. And instead of going to a green screen option and selecting that, we have pre-built the mappings, if you will, into the toolkit where you can just run it through there. And so it actually takes the data that's in that offline load file and updates XA via SystemLink, not through a green screen program.
Where in the IFS do you define the folder being used for the spreadsheets?
Oh, I always get asked this. You don't. The toolkit automatically creates a folder, and it creates a folder in a path that's SLTK/AMA-lib whatever, AMF-lib whatever, / and then the load setting name. So it's a lot like how the what is it, the Infor folders structured on the IFS. There's an SLTK folder, and it creates a folder for each load setting automatically. So you don't need to create it. The toolkit creates it.
But another follow-on that wasn't directly asked, but from a security standpoint, you have to log in using your XA user login and password to get to that folder, right, Dan? So that's how it knows that you can drop things into it. Right.
Anytime you want to get into an IFS folder, you have to log in or be logged in to the IBMI.
Right.
Power architecture, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, whatever the word of the day is, right. Right, so you can secure it that way, who has access to it once it's created.
Okay. I have a question. Does it have to be an Excel file, or can it be a comma delimited file?
I believe it has to be Excel, but I could look into that. We're actually using some code that Scott Clement developed, and I'm pretty sure it has to be Excel, but it's pretty easy to convert an Excel a CSV to an Excel spreadsheet.
Right, I was going to say you could bring that in. Yeah, exactly.
And then regarding the spreadsheet function, if there is an error during a spreadsheet upload, what is the process to fix that error and resubmit it to process again?
Okay, so the process is to, first of all, the error could be data that's on the spreadsheet, or it could be data in some other file in XA. So if it's data that's on the spreadsheet, you would fix the data on the spreadsheet, and then if you're using the Dropbox, you would take that spreadsheet and drop it into the Dropbox again, and it would replace the spreadsheet that was already there. And the toolkit's smart enough, it looks at the create date and it says, oh, this is a new one. It grabs that and sends it through. And if it's already processed some of the lines, it knows that and it skips those lines.
Okay. Another question here. Do you have examples of where the toolkit has been used with complex sets of related data, such as bill of materials, routings, or item revisions?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, what was it, about, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, we converted a customer off of SAP onto XA. And in that situation, the parent company had XA. They bought another company that was running SAP, and our project was to convert them. Everything was done using the toolkit. In fact, we had an application consultant that actually did all of the work, did all of the mapping. So we pulled everything out of SAP, bills, routings, items, you name it, customers, all of the master data and whatever transactional data, loaded it into the spreadsheet, did the appropriate setup in the toolkit, as you saw today, from a mapping standpoint, from that data coming out, and we're able to load all of that data into XA. And by using SystemLink and going through the toolkit, we knew it was passing the edits within XA because we're using SystemLink. So I'm sure, I know, Dan, you've got many others where we're pulling lots of customer orders, complex orders and things into the system, but that one was kind of an all-inclusive, here's a pretty significant project you can undertake with this type of a product.
Yeah, and let me just say, the toolkit comes with some examples, sample programs and sample spreadsheets. It includes this item revision we did today, and it includes customer order and purchase order. As often as people use EPDM and item revision and BOM, that might be something we could include as an example also. But we also have customers that have done this, and one thing I've always wanted to do is kind of share experiences. We could do some of that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as part of the implementation, we offer 3 days, which is a training and working with you side by side on your first project using the toolkit and SystemLink. So by the end of those 3 days, you have a working example that you can put into use right away, and you then got it for reference for future projects that you want to undertake. Because we find people start with maybe 1 or 2 reasons why they want to get into using SystemLink and learn about it. And before long, it's like wildfire and is being used all throughout the organization once people see what you can do and how powerful it is.
And I've one last question here to wrap up today's presentation. This customer is currently using the offline files to load customer orders. Would our solution be a drop-in replacement for those offline files? Or in other words, is it the same file format as XA files?
Well, I can start, Dan. You can add, obviously, but so you load up the offline load file like you do today through whatever mechanism you're using, and then we have pre-built templates, if you will, that allows you to process that through the toolkit using SystemLink instead of going through the green screen. And you can add fields and things like that. It would just take a little tweaking of the template, but yeah, that's what that add-on module does. And Dan, you can probably answer in more technical terms.
Right. You're right. You populate the file, the COM file, the same way you do today, and we just grab that and convert it to a group. And we can grab it by source too. So if you work with offline load, your offline load files might come from EDI or material logistics or some other source. And XA has these sources that you can identify. And we can say, we can be specific about what we're grabbing out of those files, so that you can segregate them the same way you do now today. So you don't even have to change your programs that load up the offline load files. You just need to not execute the offline load.
Right. And once you've got that in place through the toolkit, you've basically future-proofed yourself against Infor taking those away at some point. In fact, you won't even know they've taken it away or drop support because you're doing it through SystemLink now.
Okay.
Yeah, and one more thing on the offline load, we have the ability to do a user exit. So if there's extra fields or something you want to, you can do that. Yeah.
Right. Good point, because we get that asked that a lot. Anything else, Elsa?
Well, I think that was our last question. It looks like we're right at the top of the hour here. So as we said at the beginning, this webinar has been recorded, and we will be sending out the recording to all of those who attended. And you have our contact information. If anything comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Have a good one.